Hi, this is my introduction video. Hope you enjoy it. This is actually take two because the first card ran out of film, so we'll see if this one can hold it. Yeah, actually the last card held my whole summer trip in Sweden, so I didn't realize they'd filled up 16 gigs. So anyway, I'm Greg Lindstrom, and this is my backyard in Windsor, Massachusetts. You'll occasionally see my dogs running through here. The big one is Woolsey, Cardinal Woolsey, and the black one is Henry VIII, and the reddish one is Anne Boleyn. As you can see, my wife and I are both Tudor fans. So I kind of started in the beginning. I was born in the Midwest of the United States on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. My father was a security police officer, and my mother actually worked for the Foreign Intelligence Division, doing a lot of stuff that was captured from the Russians, translating and things like that. Spent my childhood there. From the time I was 2, my father used to stick me up on the mantelpiece, and I would dive off into his arms. So I've always been adventurous. I think my mother always loves telling the story when I was about 4. She was joking around with me, said, "Hey, we're out of bread. Why don't you run to the store?" Got my little red wagon, grabbed my dog, and said, "Come on, Dana, we're going to the store." We had no clue where the store was at, but we were going on an adventure. So from a very young age, I was always heading outside and doing things, especially with my dogs. So I ended up going to Germany when I was in 1973, and ended up spending most of my young adulthood there. It was great. I mean, we first showed up there, lived in a little village. No one spoke any English, and I spoke no German. On the very first day, there was a kid next door, and he had a soccer ball, so I kind of pointed at ball and said ball. He said ball. I thought, all right, this is going to work. Over the next 4 years or so, I lived in this little town. We ended up developing a very German-English hybrid language, but we were inseparable, playing each other's houses. We used to build rafts that we'd float down the rivers, big wood rafts with 55-gallon drums on all 4 corners just to keep us afloat. My parents are ready to come unglued on us. We built bow and arrows and stalked deer and rabbits and things like that. Never killed anything, but we thought we were big hunters. Built forts. We'd take vines and swing across the ravines. Right where I lived at was really close to France, so there was the Maginot Line with all the German bunkers. And when the Americans went through, they threw dynamite in the middle of them. We still have 4 corners, which is perfect for 9-year-old kids to climb into, which we shouldn't have. So we'd find rifle grenades, we'd find helmets, magazines, bullets. It was just, we were in heaven. It was great. So I lived there for about 4 years, and then moved a little closer to the base as they got a little older, and started playing more American sports. Played soccer though, of course, and in high school, and I also played American football and ran track. I ran the 400 was my specialty. I ran the 100, 200, 400, 800. Did fairly well enough to compete for the European finals for the 400 and also on the 4x100 meter team. Later on in the military, I actually ran a 46.2 against the future gold medalist, Alonzo Babers, and beat him. So 400 I loved. Still miss it sometimes. So I went through high school there, and then after maybe I kind of stayed for 1 year just to try the American school system because I never really knew it. Didn't know how sheltered I was in my life. But it was good. So when I got out of I was only 16 years old when I was in high school. So I was fairly young, but I joined the military right after, ended up going in intelligence because I was following in my mother's footsteps. But let me back up real quick. While we were in Germany, I ended up, my father trained SWAT teams, how to climb and also how to rappel. He did some of the first helicopter rappels and stuff like that in the 70s. So he ended up teaching us in a place called Dawn, Germany. My brother and I had a rock climb, and we did a lot of camping, so it was kind of great, a lot of hiking. So that was kind of a German outdoorsy thing we did. But going back to the story, as I joined the military, I was in intelligence myself, so electronic warfare. I spent some time down in Florida, 18 months actually, training at a Navy base, even though I was Army. Then was deployed overseas. Great career, I loved it, but my stepfather at the time was very high up in the IT world and said, "Hey, why don't you go work for NASA?" So I did. So I left the military, went to work for NASA as a contractor, building some of the first computer networks. I was actually on NASA's Windows evaluation team to see if Windows was going to work out, which we all know how well that works. And then I became in charge of all what's known as NASANet. So Kennedy Space Center, Johnson Space Center, Marshall, Slidell, all of those sites need to talk to each other. So I was in charge of the inter-site communications. Then we decided to take all the sites and build one big, huge computing power down in Marshall, Alabama at the Redstone Arsenal. And so I was in charge of, again, all the natural communications, and I was also in charge of the space shuttle payload security, which was, you know, kind of building up some of my career stuff that I did in intelligence. Actually got a little bored. I was teaching my daughter, I was teaching actually soccer there. So let me back up again. So I coached my daughter's soccer team. We actually won the Alabama State Championship for the U12 girls and came in second under their U14s. So anyway, so I got bored and decided to go to Colorado because I love skiing and I love the mountains. Spent a couple years working for MCI, climbed most of the 14,000 foot mountains in Colorado, like 36 out of the 54. And as you can tell, I talk fast, I don't take any breaths. So I apologize, I'll try to slow down. Those are my dogs going to town on each other playing. So ended up doing a lot of skiing. My kids loved it, so I spent a couple years there. Decided to try life on an island, so I actually lived on a 4-mile long island up the Florida Keys for a couple years until a job opened up here in the Northeast, and eventually came to work for General Electric, GE, where I ended up running all the wide area networks and the local area networks for 220 sites globally. A lot in China, a lot in especially in the Netherlands, here in the United States. So did that for a few years, and then my boss got promoted and I took over his job, and I ended up decided to come over and work for IT security, which is where I'm at now. So I'm working for Saudi Arabian Corporation, running IT security. Me personally, I'm a very, very social person. I'm the guy who runs the potluck dinners. I arrange the trips. Even years ago, we used to go all football trips. We travel all over the country doing football stuff. So it was, just who I am. Even when we won Fjällräven, the first thing I did was talk to Alex, say, hey, you want to meet? I'm going down to New York City in 2 weeks, so she agreed to meet me. It was a great meeting. My wife came with me and got a chance to meet her. So I love it. Why Fjällräven? And why the Polar? This is Woolsey here. When I was doing my climb down South America in Aconcagua, my partner had gotten sick twice for high altitude sickness. Woolsey, leave that alone. So we knew that there was a chance that he wasn't going to make it again. So I prepared for it, but however, the last week or so, my hands got really, really chapped and cut, and as you can see, even in the video, I used super glue to try to sew them up there. Hey, woo. And on my last day, my hands were so bad that I couldn't even get my fire going that morning. And when it's 40 degrees Fahrenheit below zero, that can create a problem. And so I ended up sticking food in my jacket to try and warm it up and try to deal with that. However, it made, I'm already up at, that time it was like 19,200 feet was my last count. So that last 3,000 feet was a lot of work. I lost a lot of energy because I didn't have warm food. And so things like that, things I can learn, even though I've done a fair amount of training. I've done some winter camping trips, lots of winter trainings like that. So I've done a lot, but there's always more you can do. And this is going to be such a fun trip. I mean, I've never dog sledded before, so I'm really interested in doing that. But I really want to learn more about the outdoors and continue being safe, but have a fun time, have a great time. So I'm really looking forward to that. During my last trip this summer to Sweden, I spent most of my time down south doing research for my next book out on my family, my Lindstrom family from Skåne near Denmark and stuff. And I also spent a lot of time up in Bosmanland. Like one time I was thinking about like 4.5 days without seeing another human when I was in the woods going from my old farm to old farm, which I actually found 3 of the 5. But when my wife showed up in Stockholm for the last week or so, we went up north into the Arctic, and I loved it and knew I needed to get back to there. So when I saw this adventure, it's like, I got to do this. Spending 5 days out in the wilderness, dog sledding, I can't ask for a more exciting adventure. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And with that, I'll close out, and I'll see you in April. Thank you.